Hello and welcome to the car park. Now, we're not set on that name. That is the working name, I guess, at this point, for the first podcast from New Zealand Autocar, New Zealand's premier automotive magazine. Now, joining me today, well, first, I'm Richard Edwards, the managing editor of Autocar, and joining me today is Kyle Cassidy, the editor of Autocar.
Good morning.
Hello. Peter Lawson, the senior journalist. Alex Schultz. How do we normally run that?
Schultz. Yep.
Schultz, the art director of Autocar. He's the one that makes it all look very pretty.
Thank you. Hey.
And good. And in the bottom there, well, on my screen at least, the guy who puts a picture to the words, Isaac Weston.
Yeah, g'day.
Yeah. How is everyone today? Are you all somewhat melting in this lovely pea soup, humid Auckland weather?
It's marvellous. At least it's not raining.
Rain is always a big topic of discussion in magazine offices when it comes to car magazine offices, because if it's raining, you can't really photograph. So we kind of live and die a bit by the weather, don't we, Isaac?
Yeah. Well, sometimes we just die in the weather, so that's just gotta live with that sometimes. Gotta live with that.
Right. So what's the idea of the car park? This is going to be a regular podcast where you basically have a bit of a chat about what's going on in the news out there in the automotive world, look through the latest Autocar magazine that is on shelves in stores now, and just, have a bit of a casual chat about motoring. Nothing particularly formal, nothing particularly structured, just a bit of an insight, maybe a bit of a look behind the scenes at what it takes to put out New Zealand's favourite car magazine. Right, so in this episode, we're going to talk about my recent trip to China. I'm still a little bit jet-lagged. We're going to look at the latest news and speculation from around the place, and then look at the December to January 2025 issue of New Zealand Autocar. Plus, we'll tell you about a sponsorship competition that still has a couple of days to run. So if you're keen to get Autocar sent to you every month, then that is a great time and a great way to pick it up. Or for that matter, if you're still looking for Christmas presents, as I'm sure some of us are. And then we'll close out by looking at what we are driving over the Christmas period. Right, let's cut to the news. And the first one, and this is one that certainly brings out the passionate people, is that the right word, in the social media side of the business. And that is who's going to get the second seat at Red Bull for next year. Now, Alex, you've been having to, let's just say, manage a little bit of the discussion on Facebook.
Yep. It's who knows? They're going to announce and make an announcement in this week. It's expected. And honestly, I couldn't really say if it's going to be Perez, Yuki, or Lawson. It could really go either way, with Lawson doing pretty good test stint in the RB20. But yeah, who knows? I'm hoping it'll be Lawson. I think he's the favorite. But yeah, Yuki's talking himself up, and then obviously Perez has a contract for 2025, so that'll be an expensive buyout for Red Bull. But he didn't deliver, and he cost them the championship this year, so the Constructors' Championship. So yeah, who knows?
I still didn't get why such a positive thing like the chance of a Kiwi getting an F1 seat is so controversial online. I mean, we got into this debate with, I think, some Aussies entered the chat and people calling each other simps, and it was just getting a little bit silly.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if they're just diehard Daniel Ricciardo fans. I mean, they do make some valid points though. Like Yuki has outqualified Lawson in the last 6 races, but and Yuki had some bad luck, and Lawson had some bad luck with like unsafe releases and getting put on the wrong kind of tire strategies, and just getting stuck in battles. But like his overall racecraft and I think was pretty good. So yeah, I feel he deserves the seat and on the opportunity. But then on the other hand, maybe doing another season at Racing Bulls is actually going to be better for him as a driver to develop, give him that extra full year.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? I kind of don't want him to get the seat. I think another year at Racing Bulls is what he needs. Though the issue being there is, if he goes to Red Bull, then if he does perform poorly, he can kind of be given some leeway that he got chucked into the big time too early. If he stays at Racing Bull and he doesn't do really well, then he's kind of hung himself on his own, performance. So
Yeah.
He has been very, very good under pressure, though. He's done really well. So I think he would be able to make it.
I think the key thing is he hasn't really crashed the car. I mean, he's got
Yeah.
pretty much a 0 damage bill.
Yeah, I mean, what he did in Brazil was just incredible. You saw world champions and stuff spinning out, and crashing, and much more seasoned guys making errors, and he kept it pretty clean. He did that great pass on Hamilton and Alonso in one particular turn. So yeah, I mean, he did make that mistake at the where he spun off at the restart, trying to get past Bottas. But yeah, apart from that, I think he's been pretty sensible and mature driving.
Yeah. Kyle and Peter, you guys are pretty,
No, I don't
you're not
watch
really F1 watchers?
No. But I'll say one thing about Lawson. He is good at generating headlines, and which the action off the track is more about what F1 is these days. It's a bit of a circus, and his antics write the news, so that's a plus for him, I think.
Yeah, I mean, do we agree with it? Well, he ultimately was joking about it, but the whole McLaren, should they be playing the Kiwi anthem? I'm kind of with him. It tends to be forgotten that their emblem's basically a Kiwi, isn't it? It's a stylized Kiwi. Though I think now they're technically an Abu Dhabi team. Or who's the
I think so.
Yeah.
Well, that's automotive. Because automotive's changed hands 2 times this year.
Yeah.
But yeah,
the
F1
team
team
has as well.
Yes, yeah, they have. Yeah, so they're only really British in their location, but then you could say the same about Mercedes or Red Bull. And even what is it called Alpine, and there's more. So yeah.
So I'm trying to think which royal families bought them. It's one of the Middle Eastern empires, and the whole team got jumped on the king's private jet and flew off to a party immediately after. So
As
it's
you
pretty
do.
wild. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on to the next story, and I think this is an interesting one from a couple of angles, in that there's some interesting results here. But the other question is, does anyone really care? And that's in the latest round of local ANCAP safety testing. We had some kind of mixed results. We saw 5 stars for the new Toyota Prado and the Kia EV5, with a little bit of an asterisk on the EV5. There was I believe a hole opened up in the firewall, and so Kia's, I believe, looking at working on that. Still didn't affect the vehicle's safety. But we had a 1 star for the new generation Suzuki Swift. Now, Peter, do you think buyers of Suzuki Swifts are going to be going,
Well, I mean, we're always
Okay.
encouraged by 5-star cars, so I guess it will definitely have an impact. It's interesting that Suzuki New Zealand doesn't seem to have said anything about all this yet. Maybe they've been told to say nothing, because what can you say? What can you do? Obviously, the new crash standards are more difficult to pass for smaller cars, but I don't think it was just the fact that this was a small car. It was a lack of electronics as well. So from my standpoint, sorry. Okay.
Yeah. It was interesting to see that. I looked at the results and I thought it was more to do with active safety, but it's actually the poor scores in the actual structural integrity of the car. And I guess that's what happens when you update an old
It's true. It's still using at high
standards. It gets found out.
isn't it? That they've been using for ages.
It's a 2017 car, isn't it?
yeah, 47% for adult occupant protection and 59% for child occupant protection. I mean, I think everyone understands that small cars just don't have the same ultimate safety protection of larger vehicles, whether they're a good crashing car or not. But yeah, I think this one is a little bit of a shock. It will, of course, hurt the vehicle when it comes to fleets. We have a lot of fleets that basically have a 5-star only rule. But we're kind of running out of options in that small hatchback section. Really, the MG3, I think, only came out with a 3-star on its new model. This has got a 1-star. I suspect the Kia Picanto's rating has kind of run out by now. I'm not sure where Yaris sits. I think Yaris still sits in the 5-star camp. But it is a lot more expensive than these other vehicles. So, yeah, for fleets, maybe they're going to start going to one step up in the market if they really want to stick with a tried and tested 5-star option. So yes, and then we've seen a few other results come through in recent weeks. We saw things like the new Leap motor that went straight to 5 stars. There's still plenty of options there, but I think more. We went for a while there with ANCAP. We pretty much everything just rolled through with a 5-star, and certainly since they've gone up to the next generation of rules, that certainly doesn't appear to be the case. How much, Kyle, do you think people shop these days? I mean, aside from just Suzuki Swift, shop on that safety rating?
Look, I think it's important for them. They'll be looking at new car buyers will be looking at more of the active safety features and just how they act during the drive. Some Chinese companies recently have come out with new cars that are full of active driver safety, but they're not really well tuned. They're always at you. The steering's taken over all the time. They're binging, they're bonging. And it was interesting to see that GWM recently took on some criticism from New Zealand and Australian journalists and updated their safety features to address that. It'll be good to see how they have evolved, and they can quickly evolve because it's just software tuning. And I think while the Leap motor got a 5-star rating, in our review we said that it was that software really needed some fine tuning for local conditions. So, but as to your point about how high up it is on that shopping list, well, I guess it comes down to ultimately the price of things. So when you have a little car like the Swift, it's hard to engineer them to be a 5-star car because the Swift is value. And if you made it a 5-star car, I'd imagine it would be into the $35,000 bracket to, because they would have had to make a whole new car. So that's the challenge. And look, you won't see a safety rating on any of Suzuki's advertising for sure. And it's up to the buyer to go out and search these, go and research them. So,
yeah. Right, now we're going to talk about a couple of news stories I've kind of merged together because they're kind of similarly in the same vein, in that we have seen the end of V8 power and a couple of the last kind of bastions of the technology. So we have seen the last V8 Ram roll off the conversion production lines in Australia. And similarly, Jaguar was going out of production with its cars, and yet again was another brand that was still moving through some V8s in its range. Is the V8 dying? Are we now starting to see the end of the V8? I know there's a couple left in the Germans, but they're pretty much nearly done, aren't they?
Ford said when its new Mustang that it would always have a V8 at its core, and it's about balancing its overall portfolio. So there's the Mach-E, obviously, and other electric Fords, but the V8 is pretty, when you think of V8, you think of Ford. It's been around in a Ford, I don't know, for over 100 years. The V8 will still power its F-150 for a long time, and it will still power the Mustang and the proper Mustang.
Will it? I feel like they've been trying to drive the V8 out of the F-150. I mean, can you?
I think
5.0 is still getting harder to get, I think, in America versus the V6 turbos.
Well, you can get some monster 7-litre V8, I'm pretty sure, in an F-Series. It's just, in some parts of the US, in Texas, for instance, all those red states, V8 is still the king. And it'll be interesting to see how the Hemi, the Ram trucks go in New Zealand with the inline 6. But I don't think they should be too worried because the output of the new Hurricane is far superior to the 5.7 that it's replacing. So there's just an ideology thing, I think.
And that it's still available as a V8 in America, right? The Ram.
No, I think that's the end of the Hemi.
Not just the right-hand conversion side of it.
No,
So it's not even going to be in the Charger anymore.
Oh no! All right.
no.
Yeah. Imagine the job of someone at Chrysler who's got to convince a whole pile of people who've been buying Hellcats. That's
Luxury car.
Yeah.
Sorry, it seems as though luxury car buyers still are.
You get a Hemi.
Look at the E63 and C63 with their IL Fords and whatnot. They're just not selling at all, and Mercedes is looking at going back. AMG are looking at going back to the V8. They haven't really made a decision on it yet, but because of poor sales,
Yeah, there'll be a niche that hangs on.
I think it makes more sense to keep them in passenger cars and sports cars. I mean, you don't need a V8 in a Ute. You know, if you can get just as much torque to tow with an inline six, then why do you need the noise in a Ute? It's a work vehicle.
I think BMW's taken an interesting approach in that they've kept the V8, but they've added electrification to it. So you're kind of keeping the best of both worlds there. That could be an option for the future. Maybe this could just be the kind of tipping point where we start to return to some V8s. I don't see it. I think half the stuff's going to go electric within the next decade anyway. I mean, while we're talking about it, Jaguar, they're exiting pretty much all petrol vehicles going electric. Whole pile of unnecessary crap about their whole rebranding thing. I think there's a bit more piled on than it needed to be. What do we think of the GT concept?
I think it looks cool. I don't know how practical having a car with a 3 meter long hood is going to be in real life, and I don't know who's going to buy it. But and it's $200,000, isn't it? Something like that, supposedly. Yeah,
I'm not entirely sure how close to production that design is. I suspect it's a long way from.
Yeah. Maybe the logo.
This whole thing about not having a rear window too, I don't know whether that's a trend that's actually going to take off. Digital mirrors are kind of hard to use. So.
Well, Polestar made it work, didn't
the
they?
tree on it, far out the tree in terms of rearward visibility.
Yeah. I think the one point where it does work potentially is in enabling more rear seat space. And so particularly when you're going into some of these more unique design envelopes, removing that window to allow a bit more rear seat headroom and space could be an advantageous thing, but is it just a design exercise at this point? Hard to tell.
Well, it's just how a lot of those big vehicles have plenty of headroom anyway. They don't really need to do that. They have limousine-like legroom, for example, in the back of that Polestar route, and the 4 is not a whole lot smaller. So,
well, I mean, I think Jaguar, they've kind of been forced into this. They've just had such bad sales that they've just had to do a complete Control-Alt-Delete on their brand and start. They've deleted all their social media posts. They've just started from scratch. And I mean, they've alienated all their existing customers, it seems. I mean, some are positive about it, but who knows? I don't know what kind of person would buy that car, and has that kind of money if they're going for a new younger audience. Maybe it's TikTokers or influencers. I don't know.
Well, I guess the petrol head audience hasn't worked for them, right? Like they've been moving backwards constantly all this time. So they tried it, they tried it their best shot, but after that, just got to kind of give it another go, a different approach.
Yeah. I watched this great thing from the Spectator in the UK. It was they were interviewing the chair of Ogilvy, the advertising agency, branding expert. And he said, and he described it as Jaguar having the same problem as the Church of England, in that it's this English institution. Everyone loves it. Everyone wants it to be there. Everyone thinks they know what it is and what they like about it. But no one's going to buy it. Yeah. British people love the idea of having the church. They love the big steeples. They love all the pageantry, but no one actually goes to church. And that is the problem. And they have tried for the last 20 odd years since Ford acquired them to be this, slight premium mass market brand, and it's failed miserably. The area where the companies are actually making money in Europe and America at the moment is that upper luxury segment, and I think they've worked out that it's better for them to perhaps risk less by making less cars, higher profit, higher margin, more niche category. And you've got to argue the right. If you actually watch Range Rover, aside from some of their entry-level models, Range Rover's been doing incredibly well in that hyper kind of luxury space of SUVs now. If you look at Range Rover, there's Range Rovers in New Zealand with, I think you can spec up to over $400,000, and they're moving. So it's, why not? You look at how well, Rolls Royce now is a lot more volume than it has been in probably 80 years or something like that. It's now actually ticking along okay. Bentley similarly. Why wouldn't they want a piece of that? Leave that mass market for everyone else to fight over.
Yeah, and if the other thing is fewer warranty claims, I guess, with fewer cars sold. So,
well, I guess if you look like the whole Rolls Royce system, right? No one makes a warranty claim on a Rolls Royce. The car just disappears on a flatbed one night and comes back the next day, and that's never had an issue.
Yeah.
Maybe they can play the same game with Jaguar.
Jaguar does have a history of missteps. It's made plenty of them, like it hung on to its saloons for way too long. And really, its big SUV was the only one that kind of sold for a long time there, wasn't it? And are they making another misstep by getting into going fully electric?
Yeah.
Maybe just a little too early. Who knows? Time will tell.
I think by the time frame that that's going to take for them to get there, I don't think it's too early. And they're losing so much money on what they're doing now that by not doing anything, I think they're going to save money. So, yeah, it's tricky. And we've also got to remember they've got a lot of money behind them. You know, the Tata Group is massive and very wealthy, and they do have the capital, unlike a lot of companies, to do what they need to do. I'd argue they're possibly more better capitalized than some of the Chinese groups out there at the moment. We'll discuss that in a minute. So, yeah. Right. Before we move on to the next section, just want to touch on what I mentioned before, and that is our subscription promotion that closes on, what are we now? This will be going on out on the 18th. So you'll have about 3 days left to grab this. So for Christmas this year, if you go and grab a Autocar subscription, not only will you get 10% off everything but, I think, the monthly subscription, then you also go into the draw to choose between either $1,000 of MTA fuel or, well, it's not just fuel, you can spend anything on them, vouchers, or $1,000 in ChargeNet charging. Now, I'm an EV owner. I charge mostly at home. $1,000 in EV charging would last me a very long time. So I'll make sure to ask ChargeNet when I see them next not to put an expiry date on that credit. You can subscribe at autocar.co.nz. Click on the subscribe button. I think it's in the top right corner, Alex.
Yep, that's right.
And get that. Now, if you are still shopping for your Christmas gifts and you've already got an Autocar subscription, then don't forget you can buy a subscription as a gift. We have a handy little certificate there that you can download and personalize for your loved one, or not so loved one if you're just looking for a quick gift for someone you don't care about that much. And you don't need to wait for the courier to arrive. It's just downloadable, shove it in an envelope, and off you go. It is a fantastic Christmas gift for the car lover in your life, or for yourself. Treat yourself. Right, moving on. I have just been to China with Zika. Autocar was the only New Zealand outlet invited on this trip. Zika isn't in New Zealand yet. They're still in the process of picking a distributor here. We suspect it's going to be the Giltrap Group, but they took up some, they call it the terribly cheesy name of key opinion leaders, to Ningbo to see where the cars are built and to drive them on the Ningbo International Circuit, and up to their home city of Hangzhou to check out the home of Geely and have a look at a few other things that we can't talk about right now. But yeah, interesting trip. I landed there and was picked up by Mark Rainsford, the editor of our sister website, Inside China Auto, in a Juji Robo 07, which if you've been on our social media, you would have seen. That is a very nice sports car, sedan, whatever, Model S-ish kind of thing, maybe a little bit smaller, with Baidu's self-driving system. Baidu is, I guess, China's Google. So we drove down from Shanghai to Ningbo in that, mostly self-driving, which was crazy impressive. The downside of that car was by the time we arrived in Ningbo, the company had pretty much gone bust, which I think is the kind of way we're seeing with some of the Chinese brands at the moment. Not saying the Chinese market's unstable, but it's kind of finding its feet. They had some massive explosion of brands, and then they're kind of just working out what works. I want to say go bust. I don't think anyone's going to lose any money as such, because it's owned by Geely and Baidu, two of the biggest companies in China. So it will simply be wound down in an orderly way, and its technology will be shifted over to other brands in the group. So the likes of Zeekr and Geely. But yeah, it was an interesting timing to see that happen. Mark, when he went to drop the car back, walked into a giant shouting match between the chairman and staff in the lobby of the company, and was told to park the car at the back of the car park. So yeah, has anyone here dropped off a car at a car company that's going bust? I mean, I guess other than Holden.
No. I probably would have just kept the keys in my pocket and gone on, and if hopefully they didn't ask for the car back. Yeah, bigger problems.
Still, the trip itself was fantastic. The Zeekas, you guys must have had a bit of a look at them by now, at least in images. They are impressive vehicles. Now, they are very closely linked to Polestar, the same SCA platform in most cases. In fact, I believe Zeekr is the homeroom for that platform. So we got to drive the 001, which is the original kind of shooting brake vehicle, the 007, which is their new sedan, the 7X, which is an SUV bigger than a Model Y, kind of. They put it up against an X5. They put an X5 there for us to drive to compare it to, which was very impressive. And the mix and the 007 people movers. The interesting thing I found about these Zeekas overall was they've really put some work into the dynamics. We drove on the track, including the 1,000 horsepower 007 FR. They have some genuine, like, proper good car handles there within their engineering and marketing team we got to spend some time with. And the build quality on these things was nuts, like beyond what we see out of Europe. And I have a really weird thing when it comes to vehicle quality, and that the first thing I do is reach in and grab the B-pillar. And I always feel like the B-pillar is such an overlooked spot on a car, and if a car's got a good quality B-pillar, good quality finished B-pillar, then it's going to be a good car. And the B-pillars on these things were the most beautifully finished B-pillars I've seen this side of a Rolls Royce. And it's random, right? Has anyone else got like a weird spot they look at on a car as being something that they check it on?
I think that the lower down plastics are, because that's kind of the place where you don't see and look. So if they put effort into those areas, I think that kind of shows that they've got a real good attention to detail.
The interesting thing about that was we were with some Australian journalists, and one particular one spent his entire trip telling them that the cars had to be $60,000. They had to be cheaper or around the same price as a Tesla Model Y to have any chance of competing in the Australian market. And I feel like that's just such an old attitude, because Chinese vehicles don't have to be cheap anymore. I actually think New Zealand's perhaps a little more advanced in that and understanding that, like the Polestar, sometimes these cars are genuine, high quality, competitors in that space. I mean, do you think Polestar deserves its?
Yeah, I do, for those very reasons. But I guess the only reservation I have is that we have had a few glitches with some of the early ones, and I mean, you can kind of excuse that maybe on less expensive models, but on luxury models, you want to pretty much get everything right from word go, don't you? So.
Yeah, so with the Zeekas, I think ultimately when they do come to market, they are going to slip in under the price of the Polestars. I mean, we've already seen that in the 007, which is their massive people mover, 100 kilowatt hour battery, luxury massaging seats. So I've got we'll put a short video up online soon of my ride from from Hangzhou to the airport, and that's been priced in Australia about $130,000. So that, I would argue, is probably more car than the Polestar 3 or 4 for about the same money. So I suspect we'll see the 7X lower than that. There's also the X, the small SUV. That's, I think, is going to come in probably some Model Y money, but it is a smaller car as well. The most interesting vehicle we drove there, and I'm not sure it's going to make it down to New Zealand or Australia for various reasons, was the Mix. So this is this kind of monobox car, 5 seats, but the seats aren't massive. They rotate, all sorts of cool features. It's got a 5-meter turning radius, only 2-wheel drive, not 4-wheel drive. Asymmetrical sliding doors. So on one side you've got a normal opening driver's door, and then a sliding rear door, and on the other side you've got 2 sliding doors that slide in either direction apart. That thing is just amazing. It's like the perfect family car. Big boot, lots of space, amazing design, great visibility, drove pretty well when you got to drive around a car park, but felt fine. It's just magic. I'd love to have one. I think it's a far better option in that kind of small minivan space than potentially what the Volkswagen ID Buzz is going to be. And just
The big MPV that they're wanting to bring to Australasia, is that going to do well here? I very much doubt. No. And Australia's similar, aren't they? They're not so big on.
yeah, they'll bring it in because it's a headline, and because it's going in, I think, to the UK and others with Volvo. It's being built as a Volvo as well, the 007. That'll make it here. The problem for the mix, and the reason why I don't think it'll come down, even though I love it, and I've said to them, if they brought it to New Zealand, I would buy one. I want black with black wheels and the white interior, reverse Stormtrooper. That the asymmetrical doors, it makes it incredibly difficult for them to do the right-hand drive engineering. It's not like a normal car where they can, oversimplifying here, flip the dashboard, flip the front seat belts, flip the headlights, you're pretty much done. With that, they have to totally re-engineer the doors and potentially the structure of the vehicle. One of the management team there said that the right-hand drive engineering cost would be 100 million RMB, which is about 25 million New Zealand dollars. I think he's entirely understating that. And that's possibly the starting point for a normal right-hand drive engineering program. But for that car, it's got to be more than that. It would be a massive job. The other issue is the price, and this goes back to us talking about the price of the brand. That car in China starts at $60,000. And generally, we've seen most cars out of China retail in Western markets for nearly double what they're sold for in China. Now, I think that gap's going to start coming down a lot, particularly when you're talking about premium vehicles like that. But I can't see them landing that car if they did for any less than about 80. And they would still sell some, and that would still be cheaper than what the ID Buzz is going to cost. But it's still a lot for a 5-seat family vehicle.
Yeah, but the ID Buzz looks cool. It's got that retro style, and I think it'll be an EV that'll sell. That type of van, an MPV that will sell quite well initially, at least.
Yeah. Have any of you guys seen the photos of the mix? It's pretty funky.
Yeah, looks good.
Yeah.
I think a lot more people though will have that kind of nostalgia about the ID Buzz.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree. Which is sad because technically the mix is the better vehicle, I think, or for that matter, the 007 is the better vehicle. But we all want to look cool, don't we? I mean, what's more important? Looking, a good vehicle or looking cool?
Looking cool, yeah.
Well, that's the other. Yeah, and people don't know what Zakia is. They need kind of a bit of time to get familiar with the brand and actually understand that it's a good brand before, people are just going to... There'll be a few early adopters, but, it takes time to kind of learn what a brand is about, I think.
Yeah. Though I wonder if a vehicle like that, a halo vehicle like that, could be better for the New Zealand market than say, or even the Australian market than say the 007. Just something that's just really out there and just says, hey, look at me. It's actually based originally on a driverless car built for Waymo, for the Google joint venture Waymo. So interesting from that side. But really great trip. China, that's my second trip this year. Love going. And just such a cool automotive scene up there. We're going to see a few more Chinese brands coming this year. Right.
So many.
Now, yep, so many. Now, let's move on to the latest issue of New Zealand Autocar, out now at your favorite bookseller. Probably not your favorite service station, because service stations are exiting magazines. But I think you can still get us at BP, but definitely at your local bookseller or supermarket. Go grab it, or jump online, buy a sub, and we can sort that out as well. Right, let's run through what's in there. I'm going to name the car. Put your hand up if you're the one that drove it. Porsche Macan 4. I believe you were behind the wheel as
Well, you open the bonnet and there's nothing under there, so it's obviously electric. And the bonnet on this one opened and closed too, which was positive, yeah. What's it like? The one we drove is probably not the pick of the bunch, I don't think. But being a Porsche, of course, it goes well. It goes fine. it's I think a better looking car than its predecessor. However, that's not stopping Porsche from continuing to sell the existing Macan, because they feel as though with the pace of EV sales slowing a little, they want to have a foot in each cap, which is fair enough. And there was nothing wrong with the outgoing. Yes, it is. Yeah, absolutely. But, there was nothing wrong with the outgoing one either. I mean, I remember when we first drove the diesel SUV, it was kind of an oh my God moment that SUVs could actually drive this well. And yeah. So, and of course, the new one drives extremely well too. It goes like crazy. However, we'd had the Cross Turismo before it, and that was even more sensational in terms of a drive. This is obviously a little higher riding, and it's not quite as exotic, and so you're always kind of comparing back a little bit. But I mean, the two aren't really even close in terms of, they're not the same buyer. So
Now, the Toyota Land Cruiser Prado, does it live up to the legend, Pyle?
Yeah, so that's all new. It's the first all-new Prado in about 400 years, and it's a bit bigger, more refined, more capable, just more of everything. But it's, I think it will just sell on reputation alone. Prado is a bit of a legend, both town and country. It recently got a 5-star rating, if that matters. It's a 7-seater. Probably the only thing you could really say about it is, or bad about it, is as a 7-seater, it doesn't really work. The rear seats are a real compromise on both boot space and actual people getting in the back. But they are bringing in a 5-seater version for those that want more boot space. But it looks good. It's really good quality inside. And the sort of refinement and stuff makes it a better drive on road, which is where people use it 99% of the time. So yeah, it's $100,000 now. They can get the GXL or whatever for about 80 or 90. So yeah, it's interesting, and I think there's a decent weight for them. So I think it'll be another winner for Toyota.
I feel like that's a bit of a cop-out, isn't it? Fixing a bad 7-seater by just making it a 5-seater.
Yeah, they say that there's because it's a mild hybrid, the hybrid battery is tucked up underneath the back of the chassis, so they couldn't, normally a 7-seater, the
Such a
weird fold into the floor, but they've had to stick them on top of the floor, and it's just, yeah.
And that mild hybrid, well, it's a good. I hear great things about the drive in that mild hybrid. The CO2 savings on it are pretty slim, aren't they? You almost wonder if they just bring out the standard diesel at some point as the clean car standard, which is the CO2 controlling mechanism that's forcing these kind of things, starts to dial down a little bit. Maybe they might just consider doing a non-mild hybrid.
Not sure. I think it's locked in because of they've already got the hybrid battery under there, so I don't know. They're not going to. It wouldn't be. They won't be able to fix the 7-seater problem. It's weird. Yeah, it's a weird one.
Yeah, it's a pretty appealing looking vehicle, I got to admit. Do you get to choose your front? Because it's got multiple fronts in it, doesn't it? They get the long lights or the round lights, or?
Well, the round lights are only available on the base spec model, which isn't available in New Zealand, which they didn't realise when they were doing the lineup, and so they may look at reintroducing a base model. On the internet, of course, there's things where you can retrofit the round lights, which do look better than the square lights on the Heritage Grille with the Heritage Grille. But the VX models have a vertical slat grille that doesn't look quite as cool, and they're the ones that are riding around on 20-inch wheels and kind of go against the whole premise of a Prado. So, yeah.
As our kind of modified car guy, Isaac, have you seen those retro front-end Land Cruisers they've got on the market in Japan? You can even rent them up there now, like 80s kitted out to look like, hundreds are kitted out to look like their 70s series, all sorts of stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, there's so much more retro cyberpunky kind of themed things coming out now, so it's pretty cool. We're mixing the old stuff, new stuff, and new stuff for old stuff.
Yeah. For all the various attempts to bring back retro looks and brands around the place, oddly, the Land Cruiser seems to be the one that's starting to do it the best. There's just this cult following into it. It's just managing to put enough retro into the cars. I think, and particularly with the Prado to kind of make it work a little bit. Kia EV5 Lite Plus. I drove this. We have a video coming out very soon on the channel from it as well. Don't forget to go check out our YouTube channel. We're going to start putting a lot more content up on there over the next couple of months, including this podcast. Really good, solid all-round SUV, electric SUV. Love the big battery. It has a massive BYD built battery underneath there. But they delayed it for 6 months because the market was a bit dead, but they've kind of walked themselves into another trap now in that there is a lot of value out there for $67,000. And that Lite, which is their second up from the bottom, lacks things like wireless charging, electric tailgate, a few other little things that would be really nice and you can get for a lot less money out there. So I kind of feel like Kia has got a bit of a waiting game now before that car becomes competitive again. It's nothing they've done wrong. If you look at against list price, it's fantastic value. Or if you really want the big battery, it's fantastic value. But God, we're still just in this massive electric vehicle discounting. I mean, some of the promos out there, have you guys seen any promos for prices that are just almost too good to ignore?
Peter?
Yes and no. Certainly with some of the EVs that don't sell all that well, where you can, I think now, even buy the Aura for into the late 20s, can't you? But some, certainly for the more popular ones, they don't seem to have discounted them and seem to be holding out against discounting too, like BYD. They're discounting a little bit in Australia, but don't seem to be doing a whole lot of that here. So.
Oh, even BYD. I mean, BYD's when they first launched was $63,000. You can have one in the mid to high 40s now for the big battery. Has anyone been? You're driving a Marquee at the moment, Kyle. Or knowing what it's like now, I think you can get a demo Marquee for sub 40 at the moment.
Yeah, you'd be absolutely livid had you bought the GT for 120 something, and now they're
60 something.
Yeah, I mean that's not a really great way to get repeat customers. And as a 120 grand car, it wasn't that impressive, but when they slash the price out of them, they become a lot more, it's a big car. It's not really an SUV. It's got limitations there. But at the reduced pricing, it's a good buy. Not so much at the original cost.
Sticking with you, Kyle, the Mitsubishi Triton VRX 4x4, a good buy?
Yeah, actually quite surprising. That's the top of the range, that one, for I think just under 60. Well kitted out. First time I've driven the Triton and was quite impressive. The ride quality is good, refinement's okay. The engine's competitive, but just the sort of the specification versus what you are paying for it versus Ranger and Hilux recommended. Some of the stuff is like it's got it's one of the few utes left with a handbrake, although I think the Hilux has still got one, but that's a generation older as well. And some of the safety widget, the driver monitor kept telling me off for wearing my sunglasses, things like that. But as a top of the line vehicle 4x4 on auto, pretty impressive for the price. So yeah,
Mitsubishi, interesting. It was another one of the brands that basically admitted recently, perhaps we've got this safety system tuning stuff a little bit wrong, and they've just done some updates to that. Did that vehicle have the update on it yet, or is it still waiting up? Right.
I don't know whether that one had the update. It was okay, other than when you put your sunglasses on, it told you off all the time because it couldn't see what your eyes were doing. But whether that's something they can fix in another update, who knows?
Now, the Leapmotor C10, we've kind of touched on this already. Exceptional value, $54,990, even against the discounted vehicles at that list price. That's an amazingly good value proposition. It's bigger than you think. It's actually marginally bigger than an Outlander. That's only a 5-seater, decent range, reasonable build quality. It certainly feels built to a price. And I thought the chassis wasn't terrible either. Technically, what we were driving was pre-production, so the software's still
pretty much the same.
Bit of a mess.
I found it exactly that. It drives actually surprisingly well. It has enough performance, especially for that kind of money. The interior is spacious. It does everything well, apart from those issues that you mentioned, the software bings and bongs that you can tape over the camera. That sort of quietens it a little bit. But yeah, I mean, those things are relatively simple to fix, and the basics of it are sound, especially at that money.
Yeah. MGZS Hybrid Plus. Again, Peter, we've both driven this. I thought it was solid. I have two sticking points. The last two cars MG has bought in New Zealand do not have reach adjust in the steering column, which I just think is odd. And a car that's nearly $40,000 and is no longer necessarily dirt cheap anymore. And the other thing is that hybrid drivetrain. I like the hybrid drivetrain, but it reminds me of a 90s turbo car. It's like nothing, torque.
Agreed. Yes, it is. And they've kind of, there was a bit of controversy about that powertrain too, that an Australian publication found that it, when it lost power after heavy use, like on a winding uphill road or whatever, they claimed it was dangerous and couldn't get out of its own way 0 to 125 seconds or something. We tried to repeat that and successfully did, but certainly didn't get the 25-second 0 to 100. I think the worst we got was 15 seconds or something. They would have to have been merciless about how they did their testing to get that figure. But really, more importantly, the 80 to 120 time wasn't actually that limited, especially during the actual 100 to 110 overtake. That was still robust, even after it had been wound down or the battery had been expired. But the 430 odd meters or something, or 465, I think. Yeah,
I'm not sure they're entirely calculating that correctly. I think there's some adding on there.
Yeah, and it's the same with GWM as well with their hybrid torque figures. It's like, yeah, it probably makes it for 1 second in a moment of time, but really you want an average torque figure of what it actually produces on average. But the Chinese seem to have different maths maybe to it when they can calculate these things.
Like their CLTC range figures, which yeah. Now the Subaru WX Todoroki, am I pronouncing that right? I'm going to throw this to Isaac. We had in the photo shoot, so from a photographer's perspective, you had the new one, and you also got a chance to photograph an old WRX. You might know what the spec was on that.
A GC8, yeah, R8.
Which one tickled you a little bit more? Which would you have?
I mean, it's nice that this new one is manual. It gives it, that's what you want in a sports car, so at least there's that. But yeah, I didn't get to drive the RA GC8, but that would definitely be my pick, of course. But this one is it's good for a new car. That's not often you get a manual and get more character out of it. You get more response, so yeah.
Carl, is this pretty much the swan song for the WRX? I mean, is this?
Look, they've sort of gone to a limited edition model of selling the WRX in New Zealand now. We've had, I think this is about the 48th limited edition model we've had. But I think that's kind of the way for Japanese sports cars. Once they've sort of had their couple of years on sale, bringing in small batches. The Subaru's bringing in the BRZ again, but only 10, because that's probably about what the appetite in the market is, and it makes them a little bit more special. They've got some unique bits and pieces. This Todoroki had its the wing, the wheels, some suspension upgrades, and it actually was probably the one of the better WRXs to drive from this current range, just simply of those few little tweaks. And the upgraded Bridgestone rubber was telling as well.
Mm-hmm. Alex, you went on a bit of a road trip to look at some Alfa Romeos.
I went from Auckland down to Wellington for a few days and then back in a Tonale TI, which we haven't tested yet. We did the Veloce. Main difference is the brakes and the active suspension. So this one doesn't have that. But overall, I was pretty impressed with the car. It was nice looking on the outside and the inside. Build quality was pretty good. Just didn't have much power, really. That was the only issue. Made passing a bit tricky.
The event itself was fun. They're a passionate bunch, the Alfa fans, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, it was really surprising. I mean, the Alfa Club is the largest single mate club in New Zealand, over 600 members, and they were celebrating their 50th anniversary, so they go back quite a way. They had a full display along Te Papa, alphas from all decades, and it's a pretty impressive back catalogue of cars. That we did a little fun run around Wellington and out to Martinborough, and just pretty cool to get involved with clubs and see all how passionate people are about particular brands, and great stuff.
Now, not to say anything about old alphas, but I was on a road trip at that time as well, which is also covered in the magazine. We took the B80 Line 6 on a range test. And we were in the top of the south not long after your event and saw a number of old alphas down there. One quite impressively sped past us on a passing lane, making lots of noise and pops and crackles. And about 10 minutes later, we drove past him, stopped on the side of the road with his bonnet up. So, you got to have the full alpha experience.
Part of the fun.
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, and that's one of the reasons they had the event in Wellington, was it was a halfway point, because people from both ends of the country made the journey. So yeah.
Get it sponsored by AA or something.
We noticed at the ferry a few of them with their cars on trailers, but that's one way of doing it as well. The last review we'll discuss today was when I did the Fusa Canter 616T City Tipper. Now, we are Autocar, not Auto Truck. Why were we driving a truck? It's because there's a line where a lot of people are buying utes. This we think is valuable information, where people are buying utes that perhaps they shouldn't be. Because I think with all this marketing around, this truck is durable and tough and it can tow 3.5 ton, and you pull your mates in it and you go fishing in the boat on the back and blah, blah, blah. Some of them can't actually really do it, and they certainly can't do it legally or on a car license. And so what the story is about, part about the truck, we do actually review the truck, but a lot of it's just discussing where the line is. What can you actually do with a truck that you can't do with a ute or vice versa? And just reminding people what you shouldn't be doing with a ute if you're on a car license. So we've got that, and there is also a video coming on that. We've had some really good feedback to that story. I think someone emailed in saying, nice to see something different. And that's something about, look, people probably are aware. I bought Autocar a couple months back. We are going to do a few little extra things around the place just to spread out from just the straight reviews and classics and all that, which is great. So things like the trucks, things like range testing. I'm building a random budget camper over the summer that we'll include in the magazine at a later point. All sorts of stuff, open to ideas of other stuff people want to read from Autocar. We're not saying we're going to do it. We do want to stick, to our mission, but certainly open to ideas. Now, that's not all that's in the magazine this month. We have a whole pile of other stuff in there. We look at the updated BYD 803, the Mahindra XU7 700, it's like a black edition. Peter, is that right? The black edition of the Mahindra?
It was black.
Yeah, it was black. Close enough. Ford Ranger Tremor. Kyle, you have a look around T-Bird Haven. It's a whole pile of Thunderbirds in a shed, I'm guessing. The 1993 Mazda AutoZam AZ1, which I don't think I would fit in, but looks very cool. And Peter, you ride the BSA 650 Gold Star and the CF Moto 800 NK. Now, before we quickly wrap up, one really important thing in a motoring journalist's life, or it has been during my career, and I know a lot of others do it, and PRs mess around with it a bit, the Christmas car. So what are you driving over Christmas, Cole? What are you giving a slightly extended test over Christmas?
We'll be going overseas in the Mach-E GT overseas to Waiheke, the electric island. So perfect car to see the island in, I hope.
Fantastic.
Range should not be an issue.
Yes. Will the boot be big enough for you and your group of little Cassidys?
Yeah, that will be the test. There might be bags underneath feet, but it's only a short drive to the ferry, so not so much of an issue. But we will be loading. We'll probably use the Frink, which is something I've never actually used on an EV.
Yes.
Have you sussed out how many charge stations there are in Waiheke?
Yeah, there's a bunch of 7 kilowatt-hour wall bars things. So yeah, I'll be taking the portable charger with me.
But it's only about 30 kilometers end to end, and with I think like 500k range on that car, you're really going to need to charge, I guess.
On majors.
I'm going to be doing some probably range and economy testing on the ZS hybrid. Yeah, it'll be interesting actually, because that's obviously you don't plug that one in. It's a self-charging hybrid, and it's a full hybrid. So yeah, we'll see how that goes on the economy stacks. And it's a practical vehicle too. I mean, it's kind of almost medium size, so it's a decent 5-seater. Yeah, so check that out.
So I've got the Ford e-Transit, which I'm strapping bunk beds and an air fryer and stuff into, so we can sleep in that with the air conditioning running because it's electric, and we can run the air fryer and the kettle and the coffee machine off the I think 2.4 kilowatts of vehicle to load available in the back of the van. But I'm going a very long way, and that only has about a 250 kilometer range. So I'm going to see a lot of ChargeNet stations this summer. And then for the times I don't want to take a giant van without a massive range, we've got a Mercedes Benz EQB as well. So nice little electric 7-seater, though not sure we're really going to spend a huge amount of time with 7 seats in use in that. I think it's going to be used as a spacious 5-seater instead. Alex, no press car for you. Isaac, we tried, but have you shopped for your rental yet? And for Melbourne, are you? Is it going to be the?
Yeah, for rental, it'll just be whatever we can find that's cheap. We'll just be thrashing it around. The fastest car in the world is a rental, so that's what we'll be doing. We'll just be thrashing it.
Yep. There's nothing faster than a rental Corolla.
Exactly.
Yeah. Excellent. Right, well, that's it for our first episode of the Car Park by New Zealand Autocar. Hope you've liked it. Can't say the format's always going to be this way. We're going to workshop this and have a play around. But hopefully we'll come up with something semi-regularly that you can enjoy on YouTube or through wherever you get your favorite podcasts. And Isaac, maybe some reels or something that you'll chop up out of this. We'll see. Great. Thanks, everyone. Don't forget, like and subscribe below. Subscribe whichever button you're working from. And don't forget that subpromotion, autocar.co.nz. Go to the subscribe button and we will. You can still get that deal, 10% off, and the chance to win those $1,000 in either petrol vouchers or charging vouchers if you get in before or on December 21st. Thanks, everyone. We'll catch you next time.
Merry Christmas, y'all.